Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Developing Impactful Coaches in Canada, a podcast that discusses all things related to the training, education, and development of coaches in Canada. I'm your host, Marc Dagenais, and today, as our very first guest, we have none other than Glenn Cundari, a real leader in the coach development world. Glenn's the founder and lead coach developer at Coach Plus. You can find out more information about him and Coach Plus at improveyourcoaching.ca. Today, he will share some powerful insights and words of wisdom about developing better coaches based on his years in the trenches, both as a coach and coach developer. Let's get into it. Hey, Glenn. Welcome to the Developing Impactful Coaches in Canada podcast. Happy to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks very much. What a great name.
All right. Well, let's get started. Tell us about how did you end up doing coach education and coach development?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume like most people who are in this business, I was coaching and coaching at quite a young age. I remember being 18 years old and being on the ice for the first time in a hockey setting and having no clue what I was doing. And maybe people would say that's still the case today. So, but yeah, it was really exhilarating to consider this idea of like helping other people and so yeah, as time went on, I found myself working in golf. I always wanted to work in golf when I was a small child, and so became a golf coach and really did that full time for just a little over a decade, and really started to dig into the concept of humans leading other humans and the messiness and the chaos that brings in, and the interpersonal and the like the self-talk as a coach. And so I found that yeah, just I was enamored with it. At the same time, while people maybe looks like coaching golf is a physically easy job, standing all day long in the heat can take its toll. And I was getting a bit tired, frankly, of the grind, as we would say, especially with short summers. You have to go hard. And then I found a little sort of crack in the system within the PGA, and I got invited into a really small kind of felt big at the time, but I look back now, it was a very small little opportunity. But I'm pretty good at networking with people and saying hello, and I was able to kind of snowball it into some other opportunities. And coach development became a thing within the PGA of Canada. And then, probably now close to 10 years ago, I had an opportunity to attend an event with some multi-sport people, and then my juices were like really going. And so, from there, we got into doing some coach development, and it was maybe 6 years ago from now. Our 16-year-old son at the time said, Dad, I know what you do and everything, but like, who pays you and how does it all work? And I was like, if my own family doesn't know the system or how it's working, I don't think anyone else does. So we sort of put things on pause, built the business, put a name and a brand to it with Coach Plus, and then yeah, here we are. Some full-time staff and myself and some contractors, and we're going pretty good.
So what services do you offer through Coach Plus that people can find and improveyourcoaching.ca, correct?
Yeah, spot on. Thanks for mentioning it. I mean, I think ultimately we always say the elevator pitch is we coach coaches. And, at the end of the day, coaches they're the people we work with, but essentially we work for organizations. So it would be typical that an organization would contract us out, and we would work, generally 6 months to 2 years, maybe in some kind of project and support coaches, typically in a very bespoke one-on-one way. We don't really do much group training. And it's not to say that we can't or don't, but it's more one-on-one, really digging out this individual kind of coach development model, sort of support. So with that, we work with a lot of coach developers as well. So those who are coaching the coaches, it's a big part of our work and supporting some program development with organizations. But at the end of the day, the North Star is about coaching and improving coaching. So we come at it from a couple of different angles.
Okay. And then what fulfills you in your mission to improve coaching?
Yeah, geez. I'm just reading an article a few days ago about passion drains and purpose fills. And so this idea of, yeah, sure, we're all passionate about things, but I think at a little bit deeper level, we have this kind of purpose. And the purpose, I think now, and we're fortunate that we've worked with a few hundred coaches over the last 5-6 years, is that I feel like our purpose now is trying to leave coaching in a better place. And so, someday I'm going to be gone, and Coach Plus maybe will be gone, and what? But have we nudged coaching forward a bit? And that's not to say that we have the answers. It's our job is to find, as you well know, to develop the good questions, and other people can answer them, and we can help answer them. But I think the more we can dig into questions, I think the more we can leave coaching as a whole, this coaching
Mhm.
construct, in a slightly better place in the little bit of work that our company does. So I think that's really, and this is only a year or so we've been thinking about this as we have more of like a critical mass of coaches that we're working with. It's fine to say that it's a nice business model and whatnot, but being transactional about it, and then sort of someday retiring and not doing something with, for lack of a better word, all the data and all the nuance that we're collecting, that we need to do something with that, and we're starting to move in that direction a little bit. So that's kind of, I would say, as of late, a main driver of kind of why we're doing this.
And as a consultant for coach development, what are some of the main
Mhm.
issues, challenges you see currently in the Canadian sports system in terms of training coaches and coach
Yeah, I mean,
developers?
yeah, and I'm not, well, we've been fortunate. We've worked in almost 30 countries, and I was going to say it's the same globally, but I would say for sure in many developed, I don't mean economically developed, but sport developed, and in countries that have good coaching infrastructure, we're seeing those same trends, right? Which is this increased demand on coaches from a risk management standpoint. And listen, I am all in on all of these things. I think what's happening is, um, because of the volume of things. So in Canada, we talk about making headway, right? We talk about respect in sport. We talk about safe sport, right? We talk about ED&I. We talk about a number of things,
Hmm.
things that CAC has led, and they should be really commended for that. I think what's happening is because of the list, if you want to call it that, is getting longer. That many make ethical decisions. These are being seen as tick boxes, and I think even sport organizations will say to coaches, "Hey, just get your stuff done," which in some way kind of minimizes the really rich content that's in these trainings. And so I think because of this, I think we're so I wouldn't say it's a challenge that we're supporting coaches with that, because I think we're better off. But at the other end, I'm not sure we're supporting coaches outside of what I'll call the checklist, right? Coaches get their stuff done. And I would say whether you're a club, a PSO, an NSO, whatever your role is, I think we're not, um, generally speaking, supporting coaches, past that. So I think because of the good amount of volume, I suppose, on the formal coach development side, I think we have bought into this idea that if you do that, therefore you're a good coach because you've done the mandatory training.
Hmm.
And I think we've all had this experience as a coach, having done all the training and then standing in front of an athlete and being like, oh boy. So our role is really supporting coaches through the oh boy,
Hmm.
over an extended period of time. So that's the stuff that shows up in our front door and in our inbox. Arguably, it would be different for other people who are working in the coach development kind of area, but that's a big one for us.
And given the amount of work you've done internationally, what are the
Mm.
strengths of the Canadian coach education system? The
Yeah.
NCCP and other things, what are the things that we do well in Canada that other countries could emulate?
Yeah, no, I mean it's so good. I think, when you're so close to the trees, you can't see the forest sometimes, and we can all find reasons we can kind of, I don't know what the word is, complain about things and whatnot. But we have a system that is so focused, and for sure more recently, probably since probably since the 70s when CAC was formed, but even into like the early 2000s when LTAD became more of a thing. Now that it's just like baked into the system, we're seeing things like, hopefully a little less early specialization. We're looking at the whole athlete, and we're looking at mental health a lot more. We're looking at probably, more process-based things and less wins and losses. And that doesn't mean we're not looking at it, and we should look at it. But inclusion around parasports, looking at the amount of momentum with organizations like the Special Olympics in the last 10 years. And so, I think those are all things that that the citizenship, government and taxpayers have said is important. And so I think we have a really good balance of trying to be high performers and trying to win medals at major games, yet still not taking our eye off the ball at the grassroots level. And so, the floor, if you want to say, for our onboarding new coaches is, I would put it against most countries in the world in terms of what our entry level coach looks like. So, yeah, I mean, we have such a really strong, well developed system that, as you well know, Mark, when you travel around the world, people are enamored and they just want to talk about what goes on with coaching in Canada.
Definitely.
And
I get
so
asked a lot of questions about it.
So it's a privilege, and like I say, sometimes I forget that, and have to keep reminding that we work in a really, reasonably well funded, incredibly safe, organized infrastructure.
So, based on all your experiences, knowledge, and everything you've done so far in the field, let's say you're given the mandate of starting a coach education program in fresh on a clean slate in a given country. How will you go about it? The big strokes.
This might sound kind of, I don't know, what did somebody say a few days ago to me? Poofy, like kind of very like, I don't know, kind of soft. But I really do think that in many nations that we work from, I'm not sure they can really identify why they have sport. Like what's the purpose? So we run around, we kick a ball, we put it into a net. Why? And so I'm not sure that really looking at these core values, these kind of core competencies, things that, frankly, CAC and other organizations have done a little bit on our behalf here in Canada, that most nations are not doing that. So I think, and the reason sounds weird, the reason I like my answer is because I think maybe at a local level, provincial level, we could probably be doing more of that ourselves here in Canada, which is really doing some introspection, really digging out the values that we think are important in these key principles, and then every day waking up, looking at them again, and making sure that we're behaving in the way that is important for that organization. There are no ideal core values, of course, but I think I think that would be like step one for us would be, really, because sometimes I wonder, why do we do sport? What's the purpose? Right. And so and sometimes I find sometimes it's a hard answer. And then, some days it seems quite easy, but yeah, I mean, some of the work that we do in some nations, for sure, we end up, even though they maybe have been participating in the sport for a century, we do find ourselves often having these conversations of, okay, like in some ways we're kind of at the beginning. The sport's been played for a long time, but from a development kind of perspective, because we talk about developing people as athletes, and then that maybe the behaviors of organizations doesn't always align with that. So I think, yeah, that's man. I definitely need a few more minutes to ponder on that, or a few more days or months to ponder on that question. But I'm not really sure you can move the needle if you can't figure out why you're doing what you're doing.
So keeping running on the same topic. So either if you were mandated to redo a coach education program for a specific sport outside of the technical skills, the sport specific element, given the current programs in Canada, is there any kind of training modules you would add for coaches that you feel are important that maybe is missing in some pieces, like key topics, key competencies to develop that you think would be beneficial for coaches to add to their current training?
Yes. And for me, that's an easy one. And I don't know what this course would be called, but we would have a 101, a 202, and maybe even a graduate certificate in reflection. And we all drive home from a coaching session and say, "Oh, that was a good practice, bad practice," and we pat ourselves in the back or beat ourselves up, and so it's a form of reflection. It's a form of self debriefing. But I think, we all have these like start, stop, continues, good, better, how, red light, yellow light, green light, all these kind of things that we use. But what I find, I shouldn't say but, and what I find is that let's say good, better, how, the how is often left as the sort of secondary or the tertiary thing out of the three. and even if we do, when we go to training the next day or the next week, are we explicitly thinking about, okay, 2 days ago I said this was good, this could be better, and how I was going to do it? Am I pulling that forward today and actually trying something new and different? And then am I reflecting on that specifically, like that worked better, that worked worse? I'm going to try this now. And so I think we're not particularly, maybe this is not unique to sport and coaching, but I'm not sure we're very efficient. And maybe that affects the effectiveness of how we reflect and think about where we can move on. And so, we've been using some things with some national coaches recently with Amy's work in Think Aloud and some other type of little mini frameworks that don't have to be super academic. Yeah, so I think it would be, if it was a course bundle, it would definitely be on intrapersonal skills. It'd be on self-talk. You'd be on cutting yourself some slack. It would be go to bed on time at least 3 days a week, even if you stay up later than you should a few days a week, right? It would be like eating one piece of broccoli a week instead of eating in your car from training to training. And, those kinds of things, which I think ultimately really, really chip away at the, I'll say, joy that people started to feel when they were starting to coach, that might chip away. And yeah, so it would be very intrapersonal focused.
Okay.
And I think and I think, just to be clear, I think there's a bias to that, right? Because all the work we do is one-on-one with coaches. We really quickly get into, hey, Glenn, my marriage isn't in a good place and it's really affecting my coaching. Hey, Glenn, my daughter's mental health is really bad right now. And so it gets very personal very quick. So I do have a bias towards the sort of intra part of it. So it's not the answer. It's just, it's the perspective that we have.
And I have two other questions I would like to ask you. You can answer them however you want. What makes a good coach developer, and what's your educational philosophy?
What makes a good coach developer? I think, at least the way we work, I think if you, okay, this is a spitball list. You must, I don't know if you enjoy, but you must appreciate and be skilled at difficult conversations. You must be endlessly curious, which I would say is probably the same for a coach. You shouldn't say must. You might be or could be a person who puts relationships as the front leading step in the work that's happening. And pragmatically, someone that is quite detailed and organized, in the sense that if we're going to work together regularly, I need to be keeping regular notes where those notes go. Articles that I send you, I need to have those posted with your notes. So when we meet next time, we can debrief the article. And if I don't remember or whatever. So there's like a pragmatic project management kind of approach to it.
Okay.
So that would be my initial list. And I think those reflect somewhat of our values as well.
Okay.
The explicit values that we talk about. And then my education philosophy, is that what you asked?
Yeah.
So
how do you like to teach, approach learning?
Yeah. So, we often say that coaching is chaotic. No, we say embrace the chaos without being chaotic. And so our job is to not be chaotic in amongst, the chaos of coaching and athlete relationships and those things. So we really welcome messiness. If it's a hockey practice, I'm using this as like an analogy, and all the cones are getting knocked down by the players. Like, that's cool. That's great for us. We love that. And so, no one is not really probably doing their best. And so we really try to, reflect that in the relationships that we build. And we really like formal learning, right? We often compare ourselves to like a log house, where the big logs are the courses that you might take through NCCP or university or whatever. and we're the white, the stuff what's called the chinking, right? The kind of the white, the glue that holds those logs together. Because the courses in and themselves are great, but if you just stack the logs on top of each other, it's not very stable. So we're sort of like that inter and intrapersonal stuff that kind of ties it together by debriefing MED after you take it. It kind of makes it sticky. And so I would say from a kind of learning philosophical kind of way, I would say that's how we approach it. And the other thing is that we are never in a hurry. Athletes take a long time to develop. So do coaches. And so we use the word nudge a lot. So we're just trying to nudge 1 millimeter a week, right? Did you read one cool paragraph? And let's share that paragraph. And so there's not a race to every call to have people leaping and striving forward. It's just about a nudge at a time, and really having some self-acceptance to that's okay, because that's what generally learning is.
Well, this is super interesting. We're already at the end of our time. I will leave you with one question. Assuming you're in a room full of younger coaching program managers and coach developers, what would be some nuggets or nugget of wisdom you would share with them in terms of doing their job and making a difference?
I think I think curiosity is the underpinning of leadership. And so we talk about empathy, right? Trying to be in someone else's shoes. I think it's a big statement, but empathy is impossible, I would say, without some level of curiosity. And so for me, that, look under every rock, read books. It's not a badge of honor to read 50 books a year. It's just really cool to read one book a year and try some new things because of the book you read. And so, really focus on behaviors. If you're supporting people on their behaviors, that's really what we're sort of judging people on is, things they do, not what they know. And yeah, there's opportunity in every conversation. There's opportunity for you and I today having this conversation to further our relationship, to talk about business development, to do all kinds of things. And, in today's world, I will share, maybe this is a bit of a leaving thought. In today's world, it's so easy to have a big Rolodex, right? In the old days, having a big Rolodex means you knew people. Yeah. But now you have 5,000 people on LinkedIn and blah, 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 blah. And I remember our daughter, who works in sport as well, she's 24, and she was really excited because she got the CEO of a big sport organization. She got his number to text, and she called me all excited. And I said, okay, great. What are you going to do with that number? Like, having the number in and itself is not worth anything. So while having big Rolodexes today is easy, continue to use the platform, but go old school and reach out to people and say hello and just say, hey, I saw you on that webinar last night. That was really cool. I hope to learn more, on a LinkedIn message or an email or something. And so that would be to your point about young people. That would be, super exciting.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Very grateful for it. I'm sure people have appreciated it. It's very generous from you, and I'm sure we could continue that conversation at another time.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the invitation. Thanks very much. Congratulations on the podcast. And
thank you.
Let's keep it going.
You've been listening to Developing Impactful Coaches in Canada. With over 30 years of coaching experience at all levels and a master's degree in coaching science, Marc has dedicated his career to unlocking the full potential of coaches and athletes alike. As a coach developer for 2 decades and the co-founder of Adrenaline Solutions, an agency focused on coach education and development, he's had the privilege of witnessing firsthand the transformative power of effective coaching. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, make sure to like and subscribe. Hit our website at adrenaline.solutions. From education and instructional design, sport development, marketing and communication, and web and AI automation, we do it all. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Developing Impactful Coaches in Canada.